Here's a segment from a recent Gun Talk radio episode. You can listen to all the Gun Talk radio podcasts however you tune in, or check out guntalk.com for more. It is a true pleasure right now to bring in Ryan Zinke, former Secretary of Interior, now running for governor in Montana, also spent just a little bit of time in the U.S. military. You want to just tell us quickly about that, if you could?
Well, I did 23 years a SEAL. I was SEAL Team 1, couple tours at SEAL Team 6. Probably the biggest command I had responsibility was a Special Forces commander in Iraq. It's funny, my SEAL career, I did 23 years in the SEALs, but, my career, I was never the best jumper, diver, explosive expert, but I always knew who was. and I was able to surround myself with just brilliantly dedicated Americans. Evolution, I call myself the 2.0 version.
Okay.
Today, I spent most of my career, we trained hard. We were trying to figure out how to integrate technology on the battlefield.
Right.
And then occasionally we'd go to conflict. These guys today, they come in, they're going to be in conflict the entirety of their career, and they have mastered technology in the battlefield, weapon systems across the board, so they're the 4.0 version.
Oh, my. All right, so with your experience and everything, and we're looking at what's happening like in the last 48 hours of Russia, minor incursions, all that's going on. I know you got a take on that.
Well, this is what happens when we show weakness. And certainly Russia, Ukraine is a concern. China moving on Taiwan is a concern. But it stems from a perceived weakness of the U.S. And some of that weakness is from Afghanistan. And
sure.
With Afghanistan, first time in my lifetime that we abandoned our citizens. And we not only abandoned our citizens, we welded the gates shut in Kabul and willingly and knowingly left U.S. citizens outside the perimeter to defend themselves. That is abandonment of citizens, our principals, our allies.
That had to leave you incensed when you watched that happen.
It did, and there's a lot of pain in Afghanistan. And I advised the president that it was time to withdraw, but you withdraw on the basis of strength, resolve, and conditions, not on retreat and weakness. And you saw, and the military itself took a lot of hits on trust. And this is what we're seeing across the country. I'm running for Congress, but you see this across Montana and the states that we don't trust any aspect of our government anymore.
Right. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of that.
And there isn't an agency, a division, a department that has a full trust and confidence of the American people. And we need to fix that. You fix it by transparency, holding people accountable.
Right.
But what's happening is it seems, whether it's vaccinations or Second Amendment or global warming, is that if you don't march in line, in step,
right?
You get harassed. In some cases, you lose your job.
It is a version.
Shamed.
It's an extension of the whole cancel culture.
Well, and that strikes at the freedom of speech. And you look at here.
Not only that, no one has a lock on good ideas. And if you say, "I'm not going to listen to your ideas because I just don't want to hear them," you miss out on maybe an opportunity to improve the whole situation.
And I would say the biggest threat facing the U.S. is not Russia, it's not China, it's not even Iran. It's the division with this country, and it's being fanned a lot by media that you have to take either a right or a red. In America, we shouldn't hate our neighbors. I spend most of my life defending Americans. We shouldn't hate other Americans.
You've been a Washington denizen. You've done the whole Washington, D.C. thing. You understand that the media, for a lot of them, this is simply how they make their money. The more they can divide people and get them all geared up to hate, they can get people to continue to tune in. That's just their business model.
What's so funny is that this is an area that where President Trump and I did disagree. I said, Mr. President, now I'm Secretary of Interior. There's a lot of beautiful swamps out in our country. There's beautiful swamps in Louisiana and Mississippi. D.C. is not a swamp. It's a sewer. He goes, I've already branded it.
Drain the sewer doesn't sound the same.
Well, yeah, that doesn't sound the same. But, part of the issue is we've seen a consolidation of power in D.C., And oftentimes that consolidation of power has resulted in losing the value and a face of the issues and not understanding how the rest of the country is feeling. In the case of Interior, how do you think you can manage the Yellowstone River from D.C. if you don't know where it is?
Right. Oh, yeah.
And the only context of the Yellowstone River is beautiful Kevin Costner Yellowstone.
They've seen the show, but that's Hollywood.
That is Hollywood.
I mean, come on.
Great show, well acted.
It is.
But it is Hollywood. It's fiction, folks.
Yes, it is. So you are a resident of Montana, clearly?
Yep. Multiple generations in Montana. The only time I have been in Montana when I served my country. But, I find myself being a little bit of a cheerleader as of late because there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt across America. And it is totally fixable, by the way. Our country is fixable, but it takes active participation by us. It's almost like we were in a bus. We're doing our business, and all of a sudden we look up. We don't know where we're at. There's no bus driver.
Oh.
That's because we left it unattended. That's the school boards, the county level, the state level, and the federal level. We need to take our country back and take it and move some of the decision-making and power outside of D.C. back to where it belongs, where issues are discussed locally where they matter.
And the other thing, and I've said this for years, is look, where do you think politicians in Washington come from? They come from originally being on the school board, being on the city council, being in the legislature. If you get involved at that level, you start the process of selecting good people and getting involved. I've been saying for years, go to your local school board meetings. Just sit in the back. You don't have to say anything. After like the second or third time, the people sitting up there are going to be starting getting nervous. Who are these guys who are sitting back there all the time? But you got to know what's going on. You got to be a participant.
You do, and a great democracy such as ours takes active participation. And we're looking at the elections coming up in 2022. These are my thoughts. The sequence is, I believe the House will go to the Republicans, but the Republicans have to learn to lead.
Tell me about it. And they don't know what to do when they catch the car.
Well, and the operational patience is pretty thin, so they're going to expect, people should expect results, and they should get results. But the power of Congress, because we're still going to have a Biden-Harris administration, but the House is important because the House can do two things. One is it can investigate, and there's going to be a temptation to investigate everything. My counsel is to investigate what's important, but don't have a wall of investigation. And secondly, and most importantly, the House has the power of the purse. Now, what we've seen is an overregulation, overreach the federal government. And a lot of these things we really find that rub against the Constitution. And what the House can do is go through appropriation process and zero out a lot of these regulations, meaning that don't spend any money on it. Right. And if you do spend any money on it, we're going to investigate you.
Right.
So, but the appropriation process in the House takes guess of what it takes a lot of is called work.
Yes.
So you can't, as members, fly in on Tuesday and fly out on Thursday, and it's going to take an enormous amount of work. And I think we're also going to have a lot of new members. And there's a pretty steep learning curve on Congress, how it works, committees, and et cetera.
Right.
But it's going to take a lot of coaching. It's going to take a lot of mentorship. And I think Kevin McCarthy is going to be the starting quarterback, but there's a lot of pressure on him to make sure you put points on the board.
Right.
And I think the expectations are let's investigate what's important, let's get the budget, let's defund those things that we find are rub against the Constitution, and to put ourselves in a position for the presidency in 2024.
Sounds good. Hold up on a second. We're quick break here. We're talking with Ryan Zinke, former Secretary of Interior. He's running for Congress in Montana. All right, we're back with you, Tom Gresham. It's Gun Talk. We're visiting with Ryan Zinke, former Secretary of Interior, now running for Congress in Montana. Navy SEAL and served his country in a lot of different ways. Ryan, I got to ask you the story. I heard you jumped onto a Russian ship. What is that all about? Wait a minute. Hold on. There we go. Go ahead.
As soon as the Soviet Union kind of dismantled, we organized the first joint exercise with the Russian Spetsnaz, and it was in the Baltic Baltic Sea Ocean, and we ended up jumping in the middle of the ocean and landing on the not USS, the Russian ship Natsushima. And it was interesting because I was a SEAL Team 6 guy, and we finally get to the ship. There's obviously some translation issues.
Yeah.
But I get aboard the ship, and this guy he looks like a SEAL Team 6 guy, and he says, "You're from Damnick." He knew more about me than I knew about the ship, and but it was interesting. I learned a lot about the Russians. They don't have a lot of money. Their GDP is pretty slow. They're nuclear power, but a lot of their military hardware is pretty aged.
Is that right?
The ship, it was their flagship, and they had brought it out of the yards and it had a new paint. But the Russian military puts all their hardware and armament and weapon systems on the deck, and their idea is to launch everything at once. We're more magazine fed. But they had painted this ship, and they painted shut every weapon system. They couldn't fire a Pop-Tart off that thing, but it looked very formidable from a distance.
But it was all painted shut.
Yeah.
It's like painting your windows shut on your house.
Yeah, but I tell you, I worked with the Russians in Kosovo, and I got to tell you, the Russians are tough.
Yeah.
Tongue in cheek, I think the Russians kind of enjoy suffering because they're so good at it. But they are tough. So.
All right. So obviously, longtime military guy. Let's transition to in the U.S. Second Amendment. Always a battle. You've been through the D.C. thing. You understand it. And frankly, I will tell you, we get some people who were former military, and they go, "Yeah, but we need more controls on guns." I'm going, what were you fighting for when you were doing this?
Well, the Second Amendment is not about hunting. It's about for the common man or woman to protect themselves, their home, their family, and their way of life against tyrants and those that would threaten that way of life. And in many ways, the Second Amendment protects the First Amendment.
Well, sure.
I think that the heart of America is really about three things. It's about limited government. It's about self-determination. The government shouldn't tell you what to be or what to become. And lastly, protection of the constitutional freedoms, all of them. And there's a way to amend the Constitution. We've amended it multiple times. Women vote all the time.
Right.
But there's a process to it. But, I've given a blood oath to defend and support the Constitution against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. I never really thought about domestic until recently. I thought, well, domestic must be in context with the British and the Loyalists. But no, there are internal forces that hate this country, that believe the Constitution was racist. And you see it. The cancel culture is really trying to cancel what I think is the heart and the goodness of this country. And we do have to attend to people that don't believe the opportunity is the same for them. Mm-hmm. And I am all about helping people find the ladder of success and get them that first rung. But ultimately, they got to climb the ladder themselves.
You got to step up and go. Yeah.
But we owe it to make sure they know where that ladder is, and the opportunity is the same opportunities available for you as it is for the rest of Americans. But the hatred in this country against other Americans, we got to stop that. We got to get back to civil discourse. Mm-hmm. Let's not hate our neighbor. Let's not hate other Americans. Because it's distracting us from solving some of the larger issues we have in this country, like immigration, like inflation, and you could take immigration all the way, these different issues across the board. Vaccinations, I think they're.
All right, let me jump in. You're running for Congress from Montana. The website is Ryan Zinke, Zinke, RyanZinke.com. Obviously, you want votes for Montana, but I would imagine, as we know, money is the mother's milk of politics.
And it's interesting, the problems we face, Montana has its own internal issues, but a lot of the problems we face are national issues. The border is a national issue.
Well, that's
Inflation
what I'm saying. You don't have to live in Montana if you say, okay, I like the way this guy sounds. I want to help him.
Yeah,
that's where the political contributions come in.
Well, and it's up to all of us to fix this thing. Because we all rise and fall in the same tide, having our country be successful, it gives the opportunity for us all to be successful, and vice versa. If this country fails, we're all going down.
Well, yeah, where are we going to go?
This is it. The America that we love will perish. and that's at risk. So in this election cycle, I think the majority, Republican majority, is critical. The Republicans have to lead. The Republicans show that they are worthy of the American public's trust and put us in a position where on 2024 we'll have a president who will save the country. There's no plan B. This is it, folks.
This must happen.
This is it, and all of us have to do our duty, whether it's a school board or county positions or federal positions. All of us have to do it, and if you're inclined, get involved, participate.
There it is. Secretary Zinke, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it.
There's no greater place than the gun show.
I mean, come on.
This is red, white, and blue America.
This is as good as it gets.
In every aisle, 100%.